Welcome, Werner.
Thank you very much. Yeah, welcome everybody here in Regensburg. Thank you for the invitation to give an overview about how we did technical documentation for 10 years by now. As you can see, it's not always an easy job to get all the knowledge you have in the brains of all the employees and all the colleagues into one knowledge base. And first of all, before we start, 3 questions to you. First of all, I think I have an idea about the answers. Do you document currently your experience, your IT experience, your experience in the field you're working on? Hands up, who is documenting it? Okay, that's about 95%. That's good for this conference, yeah. When it comes down to software, there are lots of different software solutions out there, and I also think I have an idea what the answers could be for this kind of question here. Who of you is using MediaWiki or Semantic MediaWiki in special? Okay, everybody, that's good. Anybody using one of the other solutions too? Okay, 1, 2, which solutions do you use? Confluence, yeah, great. Confluence, yeah. That's an also very good input because also from my perspective for internal knowledge management, this solution is also very popular. But as you all know, Semantic MediaWiki and MediaWiki has also very good chances here to be used. And at Thomas Krenn we are using also for external and internal information MediaWiki solutions and also Confluence solutions with other partner companies. So a very interesting question where I don't know the answer yet is, do you know the Thomas Krenn Wiki? Or who knows the Thomas Krenn Wiki? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's not so much. It seems it's really an international audience here. So very happy to tell you our perspective, because we started in Germany with knowledge, with our knowledge base here, and that's also one of the reasons why this wiki may not be yet known by everyone here. So for those of you who don't know the wiki, we have it running for 10 years by now. So we started in 2008, and the first article that we've had in there was a very simple article, only telling some technical port numbers for web server management software. And back then, 10 years ago, the reason why we started the wiki was very simple. A colleague of mine, Christoph, and me, we were working on an appliance which used this kind of software. And this appliance supported, or this software supported lots of different Linux solutions. And when you support a lot of different operating systems, the quality of how each solution is supported may be different. And so we got lots of questions from customers about some fancy details. And yeah, my colleague, in fact it was Christoph, had the idea to put up an internal wiki so that every time a customer is asking us, we can do a copy and paste and simply answer the question to the customer. And after a few weeks we thought, okay, maybe it would be wise to put the wiki also on the web too, so the customers don't need to call us or don't need to write us. And in fact, after that, by now, we have 2,400 and by now 70, because yesterday another article went online, content pages. And although we're not yet having the numbers of Wikipedia with 1 billion page views per month, we have nearly 500,000, so quite a factor in between, but I think for a technical solution also quite okay yet. And what is also interesting for us here is the thing that we have about 500,000 visitors and 600,000 page views. So one might think, okay, this is very bad because everybody who finds an information on the site leaves the site very soon. But you can also think of it that is a positive sign, because people are searching for a solution for a problem that they have, and via Google they come to the wiki, find an article here, and only 20% of them need further information here. So it seems it's also a very good sign here that people are getting the right answers. So this is also a thing you could use to measure how good you prepare the information on your content pages here. So some agenda which I will lead you through, and I can tell you some of the points have only 1 or 2 slides, so I try to keep in time here. Going from what to document and why, some words about the software, about the structure and information sources, what is relevant, what is distracting, and article structure, some tips and tricks, and keeping the wiki up to date. So what do you want to document and why do you want to document things? Maybe you already have come to a situation where you had a problem, you had a thing that you need to resolve, and you found other sources on the net where you find other people having the same problem, the same issue, and they are only telling you, okay, I found a solution and now it works again. But unfortunately, the solution isn't documented here. So this was also some of the starting points for us. We're facing some kind of issue, and what do we need? We need a solution here, so we are able to keep on working. And this could be, in fact, very, very simple questions. In fact, the most popular pages in our wiki are the ones with the most simple questions. So the guys like me in the company who are thinking up until the last byte of information and to document it in a very right way don't have the top articles in the wiki. The colleagues from the support team who know the daily questions that come up with customers, they have the most popular articles here. So it turns out that in fact very simple questions like how to build a flash drive, a USB flash drive, which is able to install a Windows operating system on a computer. These kind of articles get over 500,000 page impressions. And in fact, those simple questions are in fact the most popular content here. Yeah, which kind of software did we choose back then? As you can think, we've chosen a MediaWiki based solution. The question is, why did we choose MediaWiki? And there was mainly one thing why we've chosen MediaWiki, and this was Wikipedia. Reason being that Wikipedia has been used for quite a long time by them, and we were also very sure that it can serve all the load that we might get here. And in addition to it, there are lots of extensions, also like Semantic MediaWiki with very usable additional features, especially for internal documentation, support for categories, short URLs, version control, and one reason also, we thought 10 years ago that MediaWiki won't be discontinued in the future, and this was quite a good assumption here. Before we started, we thought, how could we build the structure of the wiki? And the first question which came to us was, how should we place it on our web page? What kind of URLs should we use? And back then, 10 years ago, we found a very interesting article which has been 10 years old by then, so it has been written in 1998. And the thing is about URLs and URIs is that cool URIs don't change. And you may ask, what makes a cool URI? It just is then cool when it's not changing. And what sorts of URIs may change? And the answer is URIs don't change, people change them. And many people change them. And often it's not so fine that you want to grab some kind of information and say, okay, this page isn't online anymore. And in theory, there are no reasons at all for people to change them, but practically there are millions of them. And the nice thing is that the URL of this article here is unchanged for 20 years by now. So this has been written in 1998 by Tim Berners-Lee. And in fact, we're very happy that now in 2018, we can tell this also for our wiki, that the URLs haven't been changed for 10 years by now, and they won't ever change. And as you can see for this article, like with MediaWiki, there's some versioning control or some additions here. So here's a historical note that cool has been used in the 1990s to mean it's a quality thing, it shouldn't change. So for historical reasons, about 20 years ago, this historical note may be of interest for our children to know what Tim Berners-Lee wanted to say back then. The second thing about the structure, the categories. We started to use categories. First of all, we wanted to use one category for each article, but with then have seen that articles needed to be placed in 2 or 3 categories too, and this worked out quite well. A good question for us, and also for you maybe, when you want to document things, what are your information sources and how can you audit them? And I want to show you by the example of technical content what those sources might be and how you can think of how the sources can help you. So you have a lot of information out there, may it be technical information or also may it be other kind of information. And it's very good when you think of, okay, what are my different information sources and what should I care of when I take information from there? So for a technical perspective for us, we have, for example, manufacturers who are writing documentation. Most of the time the documentation is very reliable and also time-saving for us as a user. But maybe, you know, some developers, not every developer likes to write documentation, so sometimes it's not up to date and not so technical, but overall it's very usable. Other information sources for us are standards or source codes of software. It's very reliable, up to date and technical because the standard or the source code really tells you how software works. It may have bugs, but they tell you very reliable why they happen. So you can read the source codes, but it's not really time saving to use it as an information base. There are other types of informations like magazines, which is also a very interesting information source for us in a technical perspective because most of the time it's very technical, reliable and time saving. And in fact, for the latest article that I've written yesterday, where I got a weird temperature issue for a passively cooled system, I've also referenced some tech sites like Anantech or Surf the Home, where they document very detailed, up-to-date background information. Yeah, as time goes by, I'll go over the other ones a little bit faster. Presentations like this one, very up-to-date and time-saving. Bug reports. Forums is a good thing because, yeah, people can ask questions, but you don't get answers every time. Best thing is to do your own testing, but that's not very time-saving. But it is also a validation whether or not it is true that what you are thinking here. So what do you want to have? We want to have a very time-saving, technical and up-to-date solution which should be as reliable as possible, and for us this has been the documentation of the knowledge in a wiki system. And yeah, where you have all the information as we've mentioned in the past slides. So a very important question: what is relevant? What is relevant and what is distracting? And this is a very interesting question, but it's also one that can be answered very easily. As you've seen at the beginning, we have an issue that we want to solve and we want to have a solution, and these could be very easy to answer questions, but nobody answers them. And we've also seen this, for example, with one article where we just have a very short article with one image and about 5 to 7 sentences telling about an error message which comes up every time you start up a computer, and it comes up every time you start it. And in fact, my colleagues got this question 2 or 3 times from customers, so the colleague of the technical department documented it. And after that, about 1 time every week, we're still getting a feedback from somebody out there who thinks, "Thank you, I can now get rid of this error message which came up every time I started the computer." So this could be really very simple questions, but very helpful on a daily basis. When it comes to the structure of a single article, we also thought about these questions after 1 or 2 years, how we can structure them in the most convenient way for the users. So we're putting some kind of lead text like we know it from magazines too, where we put the most important information in the first 1 to 3 sentences with the target that the reader can recognize whether he or she will get the answer in this article or not. So it doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to read through the whole article to get at the end the information, this article doesn't answer my question. We want to show it in the first 3 sentences. And so we put also the main topics in bold to get this information. For the content, we try to use headings which are concise and informative, from the general to the specific, and also to put on additional information and references. So sources which can be accessed to get further information. For the normal text, we write short sentences, try to keep in present time, and show examples with images. This is very helpful to get a faster understanding. And when it comes down, for example, to further background information, we put also quotations in there to support facts and to list the references. So when, especially for very technical information, where it's really important to know the details, we also cite, for example, a few sentences from the standards here. So, some tips and tricks which have been valuable to us. First of all, use graphics whenever possible. A picture is telling more than 1,000 words is also true on the web. Although Google cannot always really index them very well, but our impression was that when you name the pictures in the right way, so you're putting a file name for the picture in a way that describes what the contents of the pictures is, also Google indexes it very well. So this is very valuable here. And in fact, it turned out that some of these images, in fact this one, has also been used by other vendors for technical documentation. So for example, especially this one we found at an Intel documentation for SSDs and stuff like that. That's quite okay because we put the contents all of the images to a Creative Commons license. And in fact, there are also some graphics which can turn out to be a little bit more complicated, as you can see here. This was a question where customers asked us about storage performance under Linux. And as you can see, in the Linux operating system kernel, there are lots of different components which can influence your performance. And so we didn't find an answer on the net, so we asked the kernel developers at various conferences. The interesting thing was that depending on which developer you've spoken to, you got different answers. And after 1 or 2 years, we got this this picture here, which is also in use now on Wikipedia. It's under Creative Commons license, so there is no Thomas Krenn logo there. There's only the metadata of the image, and that's quite okay, and we're happy about that. What is also a good thing to do is just use a spell checker. Again and again, this is a good thing. It's only must be activated on the web browser, and do a peer review. So each time an article gets online, another colleague of ours is looking onto the article, and in fact, if the second one overlooks an error for us, for example, we can be very sure that our colleague Sebastian, who is doing the Polish translation, will come up to you as soon as you translate the page, and he will ask about every bit and byte and about every point and comma. So this is a very good quality control here. Also, when you do, for example, a translation, your translators are very valuable because they find errors which you didn't find. And also a very important thing when it comes down to references is the cool site archive.org, because every time you're referencing to an external URL, use this one. I can really recommend it. We started to do this 1 year ago for each reference that we are using, because we've seen that it's not the case that everybody on the web out there really keeps the URIs online for 20 years. And so you can go back to that information. It was also very valuable 1 year ago when all the CPU security issues came around, because also Intel and other ones updated the information quite often, and there was no version control behind there, so it wasn't easy possibly to see, okay, what information has been there. Use this. So just put on the URL there, click save the page, and although we're thinking that the contents of the web page of the conference will be there in 1 or 2 years too, we've saved it on December 5, for example. So we have the contents on there without the live web URL, for example. But anyway, it's on a Semantic MediaWiki, so we had the version control in there. Yeah, and be open to the net so you can find the answers easily via Google. And after 10 years, it's also often the case that colleagues are finding answers from you or other colleagues via Google. And also for me and other colleagues, when you came to the same problem 3 years after you had the problem initially, you found your own article via Google. Didn't remember that I had the problem 3 years ago. And give the chance to your readers to provide feedback. For us, for example, we don't have a wiki where everybody in the world can edit it, because we have to be sure that the content is working with the software solutions really, so we would have to test every edition there, but we can use the feedback. And in fact, as you can see, this one is back from Monday. I received one yesterday, but I didn't have the possibility to update the slides yesterday again for this one, so about every day we are getting feedback, and we're seeing, okay, in this case also for a newer version 6.5 for this article, the solution still works. So to keep in time about updating and archiving. Updating and archiving is a very important thing when you run a wiki for a long time. So in our German wiki, we have a category which we call just review, which is a place where I put articles in there for each quarter. And at the end of the quarter, a colleague of mine is going through all these articles, and it seems that every time it's the end of the quarter where we go through this kind of pages. So he said, yeah, he wants to finish this one in the week before Christmas to get rid of it before the new year starts. And in this way, you can be sure that your content doesn't get out of date. And when you see, okay, this content doesn't need to be updated anymore, we just archive it, put a template on it so everybody can still read the information. But for example, Ubuntu 12.04 is very old. We don't update this article anymore. Just archive it, put it on a template, and all your readers know it. So finally, the checklist. When you want to document knowledge, first thing you have the need that you document, you know how, select the software, define the structure, mind the tips and tricks, and then start. And after many years, you see that it can be a very valuable solution. So I'm 4 minutes over time, but I started for 4 minutes over time, so I hope that's okay. In case there are any questions, I'll be here in the breaks, so just come around there. And if you don't started your documentation right now, start now. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Werner. So you're using a Semantic MediaWiki already, correct?
We've used it for internal purposes. We also thought about it, using it for external pages, but in fact it then turned out that we have so much different kind of information out there that it was not very easy to achieve to put semantic structures all over them. And it's still an option for the future. The main issue has been that we have many colleagues in the support department, and also 10 years after we started, it is still so many work to do that we didn't have the time yet to put the structures in there. But it's still an option for the future, and if anybody is looking for a new job in the Bavarian area, technicians want to document just come over. We need your help.
Excellent, you heard that. So I'm sure there are lots of people here who would like to help you. So, any other questions to Werner? Questions? No? If not, you can also just approach him later, as he said. So again, thank you very much, Werner. We really appreciate that. We know you have a lot at hand, and the children are ill at home. So thanks for coming, and thanks for this great speech.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you.